Uh, Another video, Israel. This is a movie trailer that's made by somebody using AI, so it's not really coming out to be a movie. I don't know. They might make it into a movie. Yeah, you know, sort of like a teaser. It's called Caucasoid Mountain. It's like a Caucasoid Nation. And this guy right here, he's teary-eyed by telling this Edomite that they have to go back to the Caucasus Mountains. But I'm gonna play it. This is for no monetary gain and no money, fair use. And I'll just go ahead and play it.
Where are we supposed to go? Back to where you began. The Caucasus Mountains. Build something better there.
Daddy, I don't want to go to the Caucasus Mountains. I want to stay here.
You are ordered to evacuate peacefully. The mountains await your rebuilding. This is a troglodyte we're dealing with.
James, they said we gotta leave tonight. They're taking us to the mountains. Tell them we're family.
James, they said we gotta leave tonight. They're taking us to the mountains. Tell them we're family. I don't want to go to the Caucasus Mountains. I want to stay here.
All Caucasoid partners report to processing.
Caucasoid partners report to processing. Repeating. All
She's my family. You can't decide who I love. Move them now. You leave tonight to the Caucasus.
Every American citizen of European descent will be relocated.
They can't really do this, can they?
But for the sake of this nation, they will go. And they will endure. Where are we supposed to go? Back to where you began. The Caucasus Mountains. Build something better there.
Now, that's not going to happen. We're not going to have to. They're not going to have to leave at all. I mean, America at all. We're not proclaiming America to be in good standards to where we're going to stay here and take over. Most High is going to destroy America. So, basically, the Caucasus Mountain is a real thing, of course. Now you see here, right? It says Caucasus, Georgia, right here in the mountains. There's Russia. You got our people living here, and like you have to go back in history. The first Russians were barbarian Israelites, barbarian Jakes, and they showed you that in that movie Black Panther. Here's a scene. His name is Mbuka, I think. Character played by Winston. I forget his first name. But as you see, it's in the cold mountains right here. And if you so even his garment is like into a barbarian for the the code that he's in. So they kind of hint at truth a lot. I mean, they did have so-called UFOs, which are chariots of the Most High, in the movie. But of course you got to spit out the bones, man. But when we were ruling Europe for 1,000 years, we continue to rule up into the 1700s. 1600s, France, 1700s, Russia. And that's a known fact. So, Jake might have just died out and taken over the enemy because they, so-called white men, just, eventually took over everything of Jake. They what do you call it? They hinted that in, well, they didn't really hint it, but, in that movie 300, and pretty much Leonidas, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was a Jake, but they were called the 300, which was the Spartans. And that was our people. He had the braid and everything against the Persian Empire. So, that was kind of like when Jake was getting overtaken, you know, by the Persians, and then, you know, after the Persian and Medes, the Greeks came. But as you see, you know, you had the Maccabean rebellion, revolt during the time of the Greek. You had Greek Hellenistic, and you had a lot of rebellions too that they don't put in history or haven't talked about in history. That would, you know, make you understand that there was always a rebellion with Jake through all out history. So, and that's what America looks for. But, you know, if you're ruling a kingdom or ruling for a long period of time, you're gonna branch out and start. You know, you say, well, I'll take over this land, or you know, you could kind of come easily divided because you want your you want your own land. As far as even being as a people, you know what I'm saying? You say, well, yeah, y'all got this section, and I'll take this section. So a lot of our people moved into the regions of, you know, as far as they can expand, you know, even up to Russia, which in the scriptures, sometimes Russia is considered, the North is considered Russia. Sometimes in the scriptures, the North is considered North America. So, you know, you have to get that right, and the apostles, you know, elder bishops break that down in their breakdowns. So, yeah, the Caucasus Mountains, Russia, you know, all up in here, which I'll say a lot of Edom, you know, pretty much Edomite Central, but still there's Jakes in there. You got black Russians, you got black Ukrainians. But overall, Esau rules the world. This is old Babylon. This is Iran, you know, and this is Turkey. Paul was all into here, and you know, over here you got Ireland and what else? Scotland and all that. But and it does talk about Mount Seir. Now let me see what it says about Mount Seir location. See what pops up, which is the dwelling place of Esau. Basically, is Seir location. Here's Petra right here. Let me see. And you know, Esau was our brother, so he was dwelling with us at first. Esau and Jacob, you know. So about Mount Seir. So Mount Seir is a people before there's a place, just like Israel is a people before there's a place. But according to the map here, let me see, it's, where is it? Syrian Empire. Kingdom of Edom. Right here. So Edom, remember in Job, it said they chased him, that he was chased into basically in the mountains, in the clefts of the rock. You know? Where they ran after him as a thief. Let me see that with that. How you spell it? Yeah. Nope. I'm tripping. Thief, no. Job 24:14, the murder rising. Yeah, I got it. put it right here. I'm not saying it right. Job 30:5-6, it says, they were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys and caves. Talking about so-called white people. And they told you how they would talk, that they wouldn't talk. They would bray among the bushes as an ass, like a donkey, and eat juniper roots. So they got a thing called they got a thing called the Dark Ages, which they say it was no knowledge, and it was basically them being in a lower state and Israel ruling for 1,000 years plus. But they called it Dark Ages, which was during the Byzantine Empire. But you had the Ottoman Turks, which are a lot of those Germanic tribes, coming up on the rise of warlike tribes, just, slaughtering Israelites. That's how it always happened. And when, keep in mind too, when we're established as a state of rule, we go by order. That's our motto. That's why we're not in control now, because we don't have any order. So we had order, and just like the Black Panther movie expresses that too, and even fighting for, how you say it first, fighting for rank, where they had to fight each other. So, when you have order, you have principles, you have rules, and then you have, regulations that, are moral, so to speak, live by moral code, but, it started to be division, Black Plague was a part of us going down, and us sharing information and knowledge to these Germanic, these Edomites. You had some called Judaism, which they converted to. They didn't convert to the Torah. They converted to Judaism, even though they use the Torah as a cover-up and Judaism as a cover-up, because that's really not a real religion. But, they use it. So then, now they have, so to speak, become established, but not that kind of way. After that was the Renaissance, the rebirth, reconstructed a way of, them ruling the society by not barbaric type of lifestyle, but kind of more organized lifestyle and rule to control people, because they know what it takes. They learn from us to, how do y'all keep order? Because Esau was never in order, going back to even Cain, and my brother's keeper. He was chaotic. He always been out of order or out of line. So he doesn't have no moral standards, but Jake teaches him. That's why even in nursing and slavery, they went to our people for spiritual advice and even to nurse their children, and what should they do when they argue, when the woman would argue with her husband, and I don't know if he loves me, and then she asked the black woman, well, and then the black woman tells her, you gotta get out of there. You gotta, whatever advice she gave. They always came to us for advice, spiritual advice, common knowledge advice. So, what was I getting to? Oh yeah, and then he was being that clip. He was being a little sad by having to tell them, This is not hate. This is truth about the Caucasians. Telling them that they had to go to the Caucasus Mountains. That's not going to happen when we're established as right and righteous. And it says we're going to take their kings and their nobles and with fetters of iron. You know, it's not going to be a, you know, we stay over here in America and send them to the Caucasus Mountains. And I know it's just a trailer, but you know, I'm just making that clear. But it says, let me get their fetters of iron. Psalms 149. You could read the whole chapter, but it says, you know, and it talks about the children, let Israel rejoice in him that made him, let the children of Zion be joyful in their king. Psalms 149 too. And then you could jump down to, and then in 5 it said, let the saints be joyful. So pop down to 7, it says to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron. And like I said, heathen comes from places like this, the remote places where there's no dwelling. That's why we know when you look up ghetto, it's the dwelling place of the Jews. They never had a dwelling place but the mountains, but the Petra, the rocks, the cliffs. So they really know nothing else. That's why they build concrete jungles in neighborhoods, especially downtown, which is their primary location for business and what have you, and whatever else. It's always downtown or uptown, and it's a concrete place. So, you know, as you see, when he said on the Black Panther, it says that one of the key words, we are vegetarians. So where do you get that? That means, you know, even as a barbarian, they were eating vegetables. That's because it's according to the law not to eat red meat, because you know it was red meat. You know, whatever they had found, they could kill. And you know, if there was no way to light a fire, or if they was, you know, cold out of their wits to where there's no, and they, you know, no way to cook or whatever, they were vegetarians. They could have ate raw meat. Esau would have been eating raw meat. So that's how you know they were Israelites. So why is it showing the cold mountains in the back? Because we were those barbarians in Russia, you know, ruling until they took us down. And first the Ottoman Turks with the Byzantine Empire, into the rebirth of the Renaissance era, which they completely took over. So, like I said, a lot of Jakes, they fleed into, you know, try to flee. They froze to death, whatever, you know, and they died out. So they were, you know, a Renaissance 1350s into the 1500s, and then, you know, as they had power to take over land, to travel, Tubal came. They said, oh, there's some Israelites still over here, you know, slaughter them. Because Russia didn't come about until, let me see, when was Russia established? Russia founded. Okay. And see, that's not true, because it said, yeah, formed following the dissolution of Soviet Union on December 26, 1991. Now, back then, 862 AD, Russia wasn't even a term. When did the name Russia First use was created. The name Russia evolved with the Middle term 9th century. The official state name Russia emerged in the 1500s and was solidified in 1721. You know, the name Russia evolved from the Middle term Rush, originally referring to 9th century Viking traders. Now, Jake were Vikings too. And then you have people like, who was that? Hannibal. I think Attila the Hun was a Jake too. Byzantine Greeks first used Russia in the 10th century to describe these Viking-ruled Slavic lands. The official state name Russia emerging. So it was, but I'm talking about Russia today, Russia. You know, I'm talking about what Russia is, the people they're known to be today. It wasn't nowhere around. They weren't nowhere. They weren't a people like that. So there you go. Byzantine Greeks first used Russia. That was us. That was our people. You know? And that's crazy because the Greeks were before the Byzantine Empire, but, you know, we were Greek Hellenized, so, and we were those same people that became the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern of Rome. The Western Rome fell. They went back into cave-like state where, you know, and that's why you got the pictures with the Moors, with the white women. I'm gonna do a video about this. At their bedside, because we were ruling Moors with white women. So that white women thing ain't new. Oh, shit. If Jake being with a white woman, these black women think that's new. We was doing that during the time of Solomon, man. And even before, we always had these heathen women. Look at that. Solomon said Solomon was messing with Edomite women too, Moabites and all that. So that's nothing new. They act like this America stuff is new, man. Nothing new under the sun. Look at that. These are real depictions, art depictions of the Moors. And look at how many women he had around him, because we were royalty, so to speak, but not in our full royalty. We got taken down, dissolved, so to speak, and taken down. Look at that. You don't think when we get to be kings again, we're not gonna have women, plenty of women. You know what? And it's gonna be impossible not to have many women. It's gonna be impossible, man. You know how Queen Sheba laid at Solomon's doorstep and all that, crying her tears out because Solomon probably said, "Hey, I'm not want to speak to nobody right now," you know. And she's just like, "I'll wait for you, Solomon," crying for him and all that. Look at that. Solomon was so-called black man, just like all the Israelites. Don't get it twisted. And like I said, you could see like when our people are celebrities, like them rappers and R&B singers and all that, when they celebrities, they have all kind of women around them. The black women ain't caring about the white women being around and being, you know, him having white women, because they just want to be with him. You know? Long as they, you know, they want to, because he's special in their eyes, and he's y'all, you know, when you king status, man, it's completely different from being a servant. See, Jake he doesn't understand that, you know? It's different from being royal upon a horse than it is walking the streets as a regular man. When people move out your way, when you have a white horse and a carriage and you got 1,000 soldiers on each side, you know, women are gonna see you differently than a regular man. They even do with if you make good money, you better than a regular man. A six-figure man. He's not even a king. So imagine if you're a king. So it's going to be impossible for you to just have one woman. Anyway, but yeah, it could be more said on this, but I think I'll close out. Here's another picture. Othello. That was who I think Shakespeare wrote a piece called Othello, I think. And Romeo and Juliet. They were all black people. Go back and read it. Let me see. Othello. Othello definition. Yeah, one of William Shakespeare's most celebrated tragedies. Like I said, he also did Romeo and Juliet. Look, depicted as black North African. Why would he write about a Moorish, typically depicted as black North African military general why is he writing about black people? He was black. Romeo and Juliet. Romeo comes from Rome. When we use the rule Rome, we had a lot of Roman names, which goes into Latin. A lot of Latin names. You know, there's a singer called Romeo. Who is that? Master P's son's called Romeo. You know. So we clearly a Moorish, typically depicted as black North African. You know. So anyway, to the next video, shalom. It was getting hot in here, so I had to slack it. I had to